Well, then we should crack on, shouldn't we? How are we doing, guys and girls? I hope you're all good. Christopher, Hanny, Mary, all of you guys in the chat. Jurgen, this is techie, man. I had to come on. I didn't want to come on and do a bloody stream and start yattering on about this, but we're going to have to talk about it, right, for 28 minutes or less, so we can all go and watch a pre-quali, a race quali for the Austrian Grand Prix. But what's going on? I hope you can all hear me. Will I am the legend of, or the legend that is. I hope you can all hear me. Drop your ones in the chat. I don't know what's going on with live chats anymore. I'm so unaccustomed. I've become an editor jockey, haven't I? Viral video attempts only. Drop me a one if you can hear me in the chat, because otherwise I'll have to go and do something, won't I? And then we will continue thereafter shortly. Well, let me crack on. What's our wait your ones? Thank you so much, but 15 viewers concurrently. Let's get into Will I Am. I appreciate you as always. Go on then, let's talk about the events of the past 24 hours. Because we haven't got long, have we, before we need to go and watch some F1. It's gotten a bit techie, man. I don't know what this is all about. Sometimes F1 gets in its own way, in its own bag, right? I'm just like, what do we do? Okay, so here's what's happened for the unaccustomed, for the unacquainted. Here's what's happened. And I was going to do all the bloody slides, but I think sometimes this is better word through mouth, right? It conveys the point and the story better. So here's what's happened yesterday. At the pre-meet press conference, Ted Kravitz and another lady, another journo, put a mic in front of Lewis and asked him what he thinks about the current competitive landscape, or something to that effect. I paraphrase. I'm not going to be 100% quote unquote. Don't quote me on this. Asking something to the effect of, what do you think? Well, firstly, how was your holiday? What did you do? Lewis responds in kind and says, I went to Glasgow. I filmed an advert in Spain. All this other stuff, right? Sky Sports F1, YouTube. I was going to bring up the video, but I just figured sometimes these things are better done word through mouth. Lolly, what's going on? I can't even pronounce that. Trout Escape. I hope you're good. Thank you for letting me know about the audio. And again, the audio might not be fantastic because I'm out of practice, guys, and I'm tinkering. I'm about to put out a video in the next hour or so, and the audio on it is absolutely atrocious, but the video bangs. It's incredible. But the audio is not. I'll apologize in advance because the audio is not great, but this mic is killing me. Anyway, let's get to the topics at hand, because we need to talk about Lewis, we need to talk about Max, and we need to talk about journalistic integrity. So, two people put mics in front of Lewis. How was your holiday? Cool. You filmed an advert in Spain? Cool. You went to Glastonbury, you enjoyed it. Did you enjoy Elton John? Lewis responds in kind and says, listen, I went to Glasgow before and I experienced Kanye, but Elton John was much better this time. Fair play. Fair play, Lewis. Whatever, you know what I mean? Horses for courses. You want to put Elton above Kanye, then that's your prerogative. I wouldn't do that myself, but you know what? We move. And then we get to the F1 topics, don't we? And this is where it gets techie. So Lewis has asked about the development arc of Red Bull. Because here's the problem that we have, peddlers. This is the problem. If you're here for competition, as are 1 in 4 viewers who are now watching F1 vis-a-vis Netflix's Drive to Survive, right? So they're here on the crash, bang, wallop, the highly edited videos. That's what got them into the sport. Netflix Drive to Survive. And 2021 being the blood and guts season that it was, delivered on the promise of Netflix Drive to Survive. You could almost argue that for 22 races, the race in real time was more excited than the edited version of Drive to Survive. That's anomalous, right? When have we ever had that ever? In life, it's daft. When have you ever seen a season as exciting and controversial and wheel to wheel every single race? And there was Monza and there was Silverstone and there was Horner versus Toto. And when have you ever had that so consistently over a race season? Like, if you're going back, 94 maybe, 2010 maybe, like you're going back 88 or maybe 89, 91 as well. Like, you're going back. These type of seasons are rare occurrences, sadly. And listen, if we take another step back, in sports generally, you don't this isn't just F1 we're talking about. We're talking about sports more broadly. Like, you don't get that type of season. One of your protagonists is black from the UK Stevenage. One of them is white from the Netherlands. Like, you just can't write it, peddlers, because they wouldn't believe you. So that's me speaking to the greatness and the magic that was the story of 2021, right? You can't write it. So again, I only say that to say that a 25% of viewers who are currently watching F1, that's what they're here for, right? Because that was their introduction. Now, that poses the FIA problem, because if they want to crystallize that portion of the viewing population going forward, then you've got to deliver on that promise, right? Which I think is why the journo asked Lewis the question in the first place. I will get to your comments, I promise you guys, but I want to rattle through this quickly first. I'm going to go for 25 minutes. I always say that, don't I? And then it just gets long because there's too much. The weird world of F1 and F1 circuses is just, it's bonkers. All right. Okay. So I think the journos asked the question through that lens. What's going to go on with our viewing figures, and how are you feeling about this, Lewis? And Lewis responds, well, it sucks. And it sucks because Red Bull are so far ahead of the pack that they're just going to go and focus on the development for next year's car, aren't they? That makes sense. That makes sense for Red Bull. And Lewis isn't wrong in what he said. I could argue. I think Christian's already come out and said they're diverting resources to the development of next year's car, because this year's championship, well, it's in the bag for them, isn't it? It makes sense. That's just an effective use of your resource if indeed you are part of the Red Bull outfit. Here's where it gets techie, though. Ted Kravitz then asks a follow-up question, doesn't he? He asks a follow-up question. He's talking about the effect of the cost cap penalty. So let me catch you up. So last year, Red Bull contravened the cost cap regulations. Now, it wasn't by much, but depending on which side of the fence you sit, you could say, well, listen, a breach is a breach. You could say, well, listen, ultimately it was in the end, it was like 400 grand, which is like less than a percentage point of their total budget. It's not massive. Do you really want to upset the apple cart and throw the book at them? It depends on, do you know what I mean? I'd as a Mercedes fan, throw the book at them. I don't really care. But if I put on my sports regulator cap, you can argue it both ways. Lewis responds, I'm going to paraphrase, don't quote me. Lewis responds, that penalty, that ABA accepted breach agreement penalty, didn't hurt them at all. It had no impact, says Lewis. And that's the soundbite that the world of F1 journalism runs with, right? And it's techie. Go on, let's address it in order then. So to the first thing about Lewis. So Lewis, again, let me extend Lewis's point. Lewis puts forth that the FIA should change the rules and make sure, so let's say from August or pre-August, you shouldn't be able to develop the car for next year, because all that does is fuel dominance into future seasons going forward. It's a domino effect, right? Cumulative competitive dominance and durable competitive advantage. All that does is make Red Bull more dominant. And I hear that, Lewis. I hear that. But sadly for Lewis, I think he's pointing the gun at the wrong thing here. Here's what the FIA need to do. And let's refresh our memory on the FIA scope. The FIA, of course, as one of its remits, is to keep fans of the sport who are in attendance and drivers and teams, pit crew, team principals, all of the above as parties concerned, is to keep them safe. That's like your number one priority as the regulator, the sporting, they call it the regulator, don't they? The safe guardian of the sport. That's what the FIA need to do. But second on that list, the FIA are invested principally in keeping the sport competitive. competition is key here, and that is the FIA's remit. So when we look at past instances of party mode and them culling the very famous and powerful Mercedes engine, like, we'll look at that and say quite inconsistency. But listen, let me say it for the avoidance of doubt. The FIA are going to do something within the next 6 to 12 months. I reckon it might be sooner than that. You're going to start to see them ring out changes with a view to reel in Red Bull. Here's why. And I've said this a gazillion times and you will hear me say it again. Cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money, dollar bills. I'm telling you, all of the decisions that we saw, and listen, you go back on the channel, for those of you who've been watching a couple of years, I've been talking about this. I don't want to do the pat myself on the back, Cameron, but we have been talking about this as a community for the past 2 years. Yeah. Brazil 2021, the reason why they didn't penalise Max, and as an example, listen, was it unjust? Was it a dodgy decision? Did they miss it? Well, I don't know. Ultimately, all of this, all roads lead back to cash being king, yeah? The FIA don't really care about any of this stuff. All they care about, and the FOM and Liberty Media by extension, who, by the way, CEO Greg Maffei, venture capitalist. Again, I got a video coming out at some point today that will talk to all of this stuff. I promise it's a banger. But all they care about ultimately, and one of the FIA's principal remits, is competition. It is competition. They're incentivized to keep the playing field level. And if it becomes too skeweth one way or the other, in this instance, in favor of Red Bull, because they've done a brilliant job. They've done an incredible job. Adrian Newey has absolutely nailed the new regs, and they have a massive durable competitive advantage because of it. The FIA, hot take, you can take this one to the bank, the FIA will do something about this fairly soon, because it can't afford to lose the 1 in 4 who were here because of Drive to Survive in 2021. And over the next couple of months, if this ensues, Max Verstappen's already like 69 points ahead of his teammate, yeah? If we continue to get a dominant season, people are going to start to die. Listen, I'm not even going to lie. Peter Windsor was cursing me off on the interview the other day, but mate, people watch the sport differently, right? And I've always said I'm a part-time purist, part-time casual. If the race is boring, mate, I might have a cheeky snooze in the middle. That's just that's just the truth. If Max gets a start and doesn't have a lights to flag one, well, people around the world are going to be a bit dulled out, aren't they? So I hear what Lewis is saying. I don't think that's not the issue. If you're talking about pegging back Red Bull in real time, in kind, then I'm not sure that the August cutoff, aka no development of next year's car before August of that year. I don't think that's the solve, Lewis. I genuinely don't think that's the solve. People have talked about Balesh adding weights potentially, maybe jacking up the ride height because they're Red Bull, that RB19 runs low, doesn't it? There are other things that I think we need to consider before that. I'll be honest with you. And then, of course, as soon as Lewis says that, the internet goes crazy. Max Verstappen responds straight away. Well, Mercedes in all their years of dominance, nobody was talking about that. Well, come on, Max. Max, I love you, mate. You're a god tier driver, but you couldn't pass a lie detector test. You couldn't. Let's be honest. But then this, and again, if I take a step back for a second, this is sports, eh? This is sports. You go back to Jonathan Wheatley and Christian Horner at Abu Dhabi 21. I don't want to do this thing over and dig up old bones, but listen, sports, any sport, listen, I'll confess, here's me, peddlers, I'll confess to this. If we were all to gather together in London today and go and play a game of rounders, no stakes, no millions and billions on the table, I'm going to push and sledge and get in the face of the referee, and I, Cameron, as as law-abiding a citizen as I am, or try to hold myself accountable, I'm going to push. I'm going to push the boundaries. I'm going to get up it. That's the way that this is, let alone if it is F1 and there are millions and billions at stake. So I say all that to say that I don't hate Jonathan Wheatley and Christian Horner, nor do I hate Lewis for having a mic in front of his face and saying, well, listen, I think we should do this. I think we should change the rules. Of course he does. He's incentivized. This is agency, right? Of course he is. Listen, if you're going to ask me and the way that I view and ingest the sport, I think Lewis should have been saying this ages ago. And George, well, I haven't heard anything from George. George, mate, PR63 and Toto, mate, like get in front of this, like, because your advantage or nullifying the advantage that Red Bull have depends on this. This is a PR exercise. Hence why Max isn't quite right. He's not even near right. Nobody was talking about it when Mercedes were dominant. Well, Mercedes weren't talking about it because, again, similar to now, but just flip reverse. They weren't incentivized to because they were the winning team. But Christian Horner, you're having a laugh. During the dominant Mercedes years, circa 14 to like 2020, Christian Horner couldn't stop getting on his speaker box and rallying against Mercedes and, oh, this is damaging the sport. And what are we going to do to peg back Mercedes because we can't have a one-man show? And this isn't in the spirit of F1. Of course, that's Christian Horner's brilliant at this. And I know it sounds oxymoronic giving a dude positive praise for moaning and sledging and getting his PR elbows out. But this is F1. Guys, like, I don't know. I don't hate Jonathan Wheatley for doing it then. I don't hate Christian Horner for doing it then. And I'm damn sure not going to hate Lewis Hamilton for doing it now. It's about bloody time, Lewis. And what do we talk about? The proper rule changes that need to be instituted. It's not August. The development cutoff being August. It's like the last thing. We need to do something now. If you're going to do something, and again, you can have this argument all day. Purists would be like, what are you talking about, Cameron? And I'm going to have the argument with Shez tonight on the Shakedown because he's going to smash me. Proper purist. A purist is Shez and Baxty as well. They don't want to see in artificial intervention. What, with a view to make it more competitive? They don't want to see that. Purists don't want to see that. Well, let them race. Adrian Newey and co gain that advantage. What are you doing? Pegging them back? Nah, they don't want to see that. So I don't know. I don't even know if I want to see it necessarily, I'll be honest. But what I'm not going to do is hate on Mercedes or Lewis for trying to effect that change, right? Affect the change. If you can listen a cheeky soundbite, are the FIA going to be listening? Well, maybe. Are they going to do something about it? Maybe. Who knows? But what have you got to lose? All this sports etiquette stuff, man. Nah, we're not playing that game. Like, it's F1. The margins are fine. Durable competitive advantage costs hundreds of millions. If I can get a mic in front of my face and implore the FIA to ring through the changes, then what do you mean? Of course I'm going to do that. Of course. Why not? So yeah, Max Verstappen in summary, not completely factually true. That's not true. I'm sure you could find a soundbite of Max even saying that they need to do something about it back in the day when Mercedes was super dominant. I'm sure. Christian was onto it. That's what Christian does. And again, I can't hate it, but we can't do the one rule for one rule for another, right? You just can't do it. But hey, that's my 2 cents on this. And it's getting awful. It's not toxic, but it feels a bit like I can't get into the tit for tat stuff, man. I just want to, can't we just turn up and watch a good competitive Grand Prix? Why does it always have to be so toxic? And he said, but she said, no, but then you said, and what about when they said? And then Twitter goes, but you said, but they said, but did you? Fuck. I just can't. Can't we just get some racing? I suppose this speaks to the fact that everybody's got a lot of time on their hands, right? Because nobody's watching the bloody race. So uncompetitive is it. I'm just here. And again, I don't want to do the gatekeeping thing where I'm telling people how to watch F1 and why they should be watching it. That's not my bag. I'm not here to do that. But yeah, the game is the game, eh? The game is the game. But we are looking forward to what hopefully should be a very competitive Austrian Grand Prix. Rain is predicted. Competitive at the very least for second place, because I think it's going to be difficult to beat Max around it. But depending on who you talk to, some people are saying that Ferrari could come with some hot smoke, hot fire. I don't know. Who's going to trust? I famously said that, you know what, I was going to put money on Charles Leclerc for this season. Shows how murky my crystal ball is. What I mean, yeah, forgive him for he knew not what he did. Coming up, mate, Ferrari are ridiculously bad. And I think that's one of the tragedies. In addition to Mercedes still not having the car on the back of following a failed design philosophy, throwing good money after bad. I think that's the second tragedy of the season, that Ferrari still keep dropping the bag. Charles Leclerc keeps fudging up his maths on the back of a failure to be assertive and tell his team, no, I don't want to go out on, like, put me on the slicks, lads. If you know that it should be slicks, then for quali, then say that, Charles, and make sure that you don't go out without the slick. Am I being too simple here? I don't want to blame Charles Leclerc for things that he shouldn't be blamed for, but I don't know. It's chaos. It's all chaos. It is all chaos. Oh, I'm just thinking, so I just bought something. Mary, you'll be happy with something that I've just done. And Mandela, you will also be happy with something that I've just done. I swear to you guys, I thought I'd done this already, but apparently I hadn't. Right. What else do we need to discuss? I think that's it. Let's get to some, since this is a live chat, let's have the chat. And again, listen, to each and every single one of you that stick with the channel, now that I'm doing it pseudo full time. I'll tell you what, like, before I get onto your chats, let me give you an update as to where the channel's going and what we're doing. I don't want to criticize the space, but for my money, for my subjectivity, for the sort of stuff that I want to watch, I know some of you guys will be fans of like sporting documentaries. Please see OJ Made in America as an example for the boxing fans out there. 24/7, Legendary Nights, or HBO Productions. Just really, really good documentaries. I started watching one recently on the back of a recommendation. It's on Netflix called Love, Death and Ghosts or something. It's brilliant. It's so good. The storytelling on there is like God tier. I say that to say I think the space is immature, right? And there's not really anybody telling stories out there, like, not in the way that I like to watch it anyway. I'll tell you that much. Hence why you see me putting out these videos every week now, where I'm trying to make the video that I would like to watch as a fan of storytelling and documentaries and sports documentaries. So this is what we're trying to do. Grab the most interesting stories and tell them in F1. That's what we're looking to do. Hence why you won't see me do as much lives. Lives on here, the focus will be on interviews. I'll be getting Bryson on again imminently. He was on, bless him, and then he fell a bit sick. We'll be getting Bryson next week. So there'll be a community tab post. If you've got questions for him, drop them on there and let me know, and I'll pitch them at Professor Bryson, legend. It'll be the shakedown. We're doing another shakedown tonight where me and Baxty and Shez will be arguing. But that, in a nutshell, peddlers of the plant, that's all. I'm a numpty. I'm a noddy. I can't see. My foresight is just foresight or lack thereof for Cameron F1. That's my problem. I just want to, this time off or away from full-time work, I want to use it efficiently. I want to be an RB19 of a content creator as versus a W14B or whatever. I just want to give you that context just so you guys understand, because I don't know, it's a weird space, the F1 content creation space. Do more short form, do more long form. Like, you just hear all this weird advice. Anyway, right, I digress. Let me spend 10 minutes talking. Right, live chat time. Jürgen, Just like presentation content needs to change. Max already cost me 45 million in 3 years. Oh, Jürgen. Jürgen. It's a lot, isn't it? Christopher, what's going on, sir? I love Ham and respect Verstappen. They're both great drivers. What I am unsupportive of is doing Mercedes here when they won 21 straight races, but for Spain crash, where no ad hoc rules introduced. Okay, so Christopher, to that point, I think we're comparing apples and oranges here. So the issue was when Nico Rosberg, so 2014, 15, 16, it looked very different to 2023, 2022, right? If not just because Nico Rosberg was a worthy competitor for Lewis Hamilton, right? He took 2016 even. Again, there was a bit of, it was fortuitous and Lewis had massive issues with the team and they swapped the garages round and reliability wasn't the best for Lewis that year. Absolutely, he was unlucky. But all the rest of the fact that there was another team to compete with Mercedes fades to black when you have two drivers in the same team, the most dominant team in Mercedes back in the day, who are able to take points off of each other. So in that sense, the suspect most likely is Checo Perez, right? Because he can't hold for the avoidance of doubt, he cannot around non-street circuits hold a candle to Max Verstappen. Now, what I'm not going to do is indulge any of this conspiracy theory shenanigans that Red Bull they've loosened all the bolts on Checo Perez's car, haven't they? They don't need to do that. This happens every single bloody year, or at least for the past 2 years, around the street circuit, because of his style and the way that he drives the car and how beautifully he's on the accelerator on the exit of the tighter turns, like the 100 and the Monaco's and Rascas, these very slow turns. Because of that, Checo Perez is always going to show up for the street circuits. He's a street king, a street fighter. He gets the rear limited stuff. But put him around your traditional ones, your Spas, your bloody, no, I don't think I say Austria, your Spas, your Silverstones, because of the way that Max turns in and his ability to manage an unstable rear and leverage that on the Maggots and the Beckettses and the Eau Rouges and the Radillon. Max Verstappen is going to nail Checo Perez every single time. So this just feels like deja vu to me. This time last year, we were saying the same thing. Oh, this is Checo 2.1 now. Like, Max isn't going to dominate him, but, well, we were saying that on the back of the street circuit heavy portion of the season. And then when that goes away and we get back to Austria and Spa and Silverstone, Max just destroys Checo Perez. Just is what it is. Drivers have different characteristics, different strengths and weaknesses, right? And sadly for Checo, on the balance of the season, there are more non-street circuit tracks than there are street circuit ones. So you always go around. I expect to you'll see the same if he lasts. Expect to see the same thing next season. Checo will go well early because it's so many street circuits, and he can leverage his ability to modulate the throttle pedal on the exit of these slow hairpin S turns. He's brilliant at that. On the F1 Nation podcast this week, they were talking about it. One of Checo's old managers at Racing Point, I can't remember the chap's name, but he says he's just got this god tier ability to, like, he's just incredible at modulating his throttle, and that's why he was like the original tyre whisperer, right? And again, I'll give credit to the F1 Nation because they spoke about this more. I didn't even think about this. But if you're talking about Checo's advantages and where they've gone versus a Max Verstappen, you got to think about if he was a tyre whisperer, and in 2023, we have these new, 2022, right? They brought in these new lower profile tyres that are far less subject or vulnerable even to tyre deg and tyre wear. Then that takes a massive tool out of Checo's toolbox, right? If you are the tyre whisperer and you can manage tyre deg, but these low profiles tyres are more robust and less subject to tyre deg, thermal wear, then that's a massive tool gone away from Checo, isn't it? Oh, well. Yeah, so it is interesting. That's a very lot. I hope that answers your question, Christopher. Different apples and oranges if you're comparing 2014 to 2016 Mercedes versus 2022-23 Red Bull, if only because Checo Perez just doesn't have the minerals the requisite tools and skills around like the bulk of the tracks on the season calendar, sadly. Christopher, a very long-winded way of answering your question. If the design changes to support the mission of closer racing, it has to be done 2019. Fine, let's do that, but let's not dream up artificial. Christopher, I don't hate what you're saying there, but I'm not sure if I'm, as much as I want to see racing for first and second, I don't want to see like a gazillion artifices, artificial interventions from the FIA. It just doesn't feel like it's necessarily in the sport. But if you gun to the head, if there were like a panacea to make, I don't know, Lewis, Alonso and Max Verstappen have equal machinery and from now until the end of this, mate, I'm pressing that button every single time. But then that's because I'm a part-time casual, in addition to being a part-time purist. Well, let's get to some of your questions. I need to run. What's going on, Lolly? Mandler, moderator, it's Jordan. I hope you're good. Mandler, check your, I've just sent you something. Driving, good morning. How we doing, Lolly? Oh, 2021 was made more dramatic than that. Yeah. You can see me going through the old comments, and I agree with you, Lolly. What's going on, Mary, moderator extraordinaire? I sorted it out, Mary. Should have it now. In truth, I added somebody called, just do this. In truth, I added somebody called Mary Binney, but apparently you're not the only one of that name, Mary. So somebody called Mary Binney, not you, Mary, is now moderator. But 2014 Mercedes, 2020. I think I've addressed that already. Hanny, was Lewis so afraid that fans stopped looking when he was winning? Hanny, so I think I've addressed that already. It is an analogous circumstance, but it's different, isn't it? And we're going over 7 minutes. I want to answer all your questions, then we'll go and watch some racing, because I know it's come on now, isn't it? Practice one. And again, be mindful of the new sprint qualifying format this weekend. It's still a bit weird. I still struggle to remember. Just before I came and I had to refresh my memory. So it's practice one, only one practice session, practice one, and then qualifying, I want to say at 4 p.m. British Standard Time today. This qualifying session is for the race on Sunday. Then tomorrow morning you will get a qualifying session, the outcome of which will decide the grid position for the sprint qualifying session, which is its own entity now. The sprint qualifying session will happen later on the afternoon of Saturday. Yeah, that's not complicated at all, is it? Cheers, FIA, for simplifying the sport, for making it easier to understand for the new fans to drive to survive generation. Been watching the sport a gazillion years and I can't even suss it out. Sprint qualifying for the... What are we doing? It's chaos. Try to explain it in easy to understand language and I just sound like a madman talking about like astrophysics. What are we doing? Mandela, here's the truth. Red Bull asked for all sorts of handicaps during Mercedes dominance and they got a whole lot of them passed through. The one time Sir Lewis says something about that. Yeah, the headlines. So Mandela, I think I get what you're alluding to. The media is quite... There's two things there. Lewis is just, you can see, if you guys have been on Twitter, if you say something, I've started engaging it now, but if you clip, the temptation is to clip that Lewis Hamilton video piece, right? And there was a few months back, I would have been doing it. But as soon as I seen that on Sky Sports and Lewis says something that's even a smidgen controversial, you take that clip, and you put it on Twitter and it just goes viral. Anything to do with Lewis Hamilton and controversy or him asking for something or, I don't know, he doesn't, and to Lewis's credit, his personality, he doesn't like to ruffle feathers. He doesn't like confrontation, right? I think I would counter. I feel like Lewis should be, I'd like to see Lewis at this point, July nearly of 2023, do a bit of a Christian Horner and get his elbows out and get on the offensive. I think Mercedes haven't done this enough because rest assured, if the roles were reversed, Christian Horner he'd be going hard. He'd be absolutely destroying Mercedes. Oh, FIA, you've got to, why don't you get these lapped cars out the way? Michael, like he'd be getting onto it, him and Jonathan Wheatley. And you know what? They're incentivized to do it. So I'm not going to hate on Mercedes and Lewis for saying that now. Of course, the only hate that I would give to Lewis, not doing this earlier. As soon as this durable competitive advantage, as soon as we realise it's material as it is, I still think it's a lot. It's a lot more than we're seeing, because Red Bull aren't turning up their engines to 12. They've got no need to, right? They're not showing their hand completely. Why would they? Because if they did, then the FIA would be incentivized to act sooner, to do something sooner. It's coming though, promise you. It is coming, because the FIA aren't looking to lose. They're not looking to lose. They're not going to lose their bottom line. Liberty Media, look, 8 billion. And again, this video that comes out a little bit later today will show you 8 billion was the total price that Liberty Media paid for F1. It was like 4.4 billion in market cap, and the rest was debt. So there is a debt to be paid here, and Liberty Mutual being headed up by a venture capitalist. What do you think they're on about? Like, they're here to pay the bills. Forget about that. All of the North American expansion stuff is fantastic, but they're here to pay bills. Do not get it twisted. Greg Maffei, you'll see in the video the way this fella talks. Yeah, add value, but all the rumors around 20 billion buyout of F1, that's not enough. Mate, they're looking to pay bills here. And anything, if Red Bull, okay, I say all that to say this in a nutshell. If Liberty Media and the FIA deem for 1 second that Red Bull's dominance is potentially that there will be a downside impact on their bottom line, even as soon as 2023, you watch, the FIA will be leaking out all kind of amendments to the sporting code and the regs. You will see it imminently, I promise. And the viewing figures, if you check the viewing figures are already down, not massively. If you compare Miami this year, Miami last year, the viewing figures are down, and the attendance figures too. The FIA, the changes, I'm telling you, take this to the bank. The FIA don't mess about, man. as Mama Cameron would say, the FIA do not ramp. They do not mess about with their bottom line, nor do Liberty Media. Joking. Change is coming. Change is coming. It's not a black or a white thing. It's a green thing. Promise you. Lisa's never been afraid, like he says, never give up on it. So Mary, I'd counter that, you know. I think, and again, I need to put together this Lewis documentary at some point and talk to this. The way I've always seen Lewis is that he shows us. Oh, do we get into this now, Mary? This feels like another conversation for another day. All right, let's go for it. So that's only going to go, all right, I'm going to run away 20 minutes or less, because, Mary, you've just got me into this now. Oh, okay, right. Here's the thing with Lewis Hamilton. As a person of colour who's been operating in a space where for all his life, I'm not just talking about F1, right? I'm talking about feeder Formula GP2, karting even. For all of his life, he's been turning up to racing tracks, and he has been the only person of colour. That's the context. So when you're in that circumstance, you realise that racism exists in the world, right? So to say that there is not racism in racing is almost like it's a non sequitur. It's a point that doesn't even make sense. It can't make sense. From those racism in the world, then of course there's going to be a drip feed through to any sphere that you look at, sporting, political, whatever. There will be a drip feed. Now you can debate the percentages of the drip feed all day and night, yeah, and it will never be easy to crystallise that and say for certain. But here's what we need to know. Lewis for the longest time has been, and this is me saying this as the son of Jamaican migrants, as a dude who spent his formative school years from the age of 5 to like 10 as the only person of colour in a school. And I only tell you this, this isn't me moaning, I only tell you this to colour the point that I'm about to make. No pun intended. So here's what I think about Lewis, Mary. I feel like Lewis has been carrying this burden all of his life. And Abu Dhabi 21 and the way that he behaved and conducted himself with such humility and grace kind of doesn't even say, grace isn't the word that I'm looking for. Almost like Bushido, right? Almost like a Zen-like stoicism. But he's had to deal with that all his life, right? He has had to deal with it all his life. So when Ted Kravitz puts a microphone in front of Lewis's face, rather than being able to shoot from the hip like a Christian Horner does, he has this filtration process going on, right, in his head. Because he's done it all his life. If I say this, minus a couple of months there when he was the famous quote, is it because I'm black and all this other stuff? But Lewis will have to be, he has to do this. He has a filter. I'd almost call it like a survival filter, because the media will take what he says. Is it because I'm black? Or I don't know. Anything rogue that Lewis Hamilton says is headline worthy, right? And so with a view to protect his commercial value and his advertising value and his sponsors and all of that good stuff, Lewis will have had a filter, almost like a muzzle on him, all as long as he can remember. And that's what you're seeing still today. When I'm criticising this and saying, listen, I wish that he would have done this, him and Toto and George should have been getting out in front of this a couple races back and imploring verbally the FIA to ring out the changes. The reason why Lewis isn't going to do that, because it's not in his makeup, this filter, this almost societal muzzle, it's a defence mechanism that Lewis has always had and will always have. And that's why Lewis is kind of like, not afraid isn't the word, Mary, but he'll have this thing inbuilt. It's almost like a coping mechanism to prevent trauma. Getting a bit techy now, it's a bit deep, but afraid isn't the word, Mary, but hesitant, trepidation is how Lewis will work. You can kind of see, I will say this to you before I move on to the next point. Mary, Mandler, Pedlers, next time you go back and watch the Sky Sports interview where he's saying all this stuff about the rules and regs and it sucks and change. The FI has to change and teams shouldn't be allowed to develop next year's car before August. Go back and watch his countenance. Have a look at his face. He's almost got this mischievous look on his face. He's well aware that what he's saying is controversial, right? Because it's almost like it's survival for Lewis. Sad as it is, but this is what Lewis has dealt with all his life. And I can say that as somebody who hasn't, I mean, I feel the same burden, I'll be honest, going through society. But, and again, I only say I'm not moaning here and this isn't me complaining. I'm just, colour and context is important. I hope that answers your comment, Mary. Hanny, Will I Am, outwork Red Bull, Mercedes and Ferrari are all spending 400 million. The difference is there is a cost cap now on year one, gain advantage illegally by breaking it. Oh, Will I Am. It's techie, Will I Am, this is. So did they, I'll concentrate on your last point. Did Red Bull gain an advantage by breaking the cost cap? Well, how can we know for sure, Ray? In all likelihood, they did, probably. But if you just can't tell. Like where, okay, let's say, all right, conservative, let's say that they breached by 400k USD. Like what could they do with that realistically? How many additional front wings, or how would that correlate into I don't know. I don't know. There's massive speculation here. I don't know. Maybe it did gain them an advantage. I don't know. It's hard to say. Will I Am. The only reason why I say that is because I don't want to have the camera on me here and start talking so definitively. Like I just don't know. Maybe it did, but I don't know. I just ain't no telling. And even then, Will I Am. Look at this. Catch this. As an accountant, here's me putting my accountant cap on again for a second. If you're looking at, say, it was like 140 million, I think it was meant to be 145 million last year. Yeah. If they were 400k over, you could point, depending on how you present these things, and again, I'm speaking as a management accountant here, depending on how you present these things, which one of the items that they spent money on was the over and above 400k? What was it? Was it the tax rebate that they didn't get, that they thought they were going to get? Was that the additional 400k? Was the 400k spent on catering? Was the 400k on Adrian Newey spent? Like, it's, how do you, like, you'd have to go through receipts and like timestamp everything and then say, well, at this point you were 145 million. And like, it's just hard to, like, I don't know, Will.i.am. It's hard to say, for me, it's hard to say for sure whether they gained an advantage. And if you talk to people like around the paddock and people that have worked at F1 teams, that 400k, if that was the breach, I don't know. 400k is a percentage of 145 million. I think that's less than a percentage point, isn't it? I don't know, Will.i.am. It's a conversation. We'll be having this conversation until the end of the time. I'm not sure. I'll tell you what I will say, that the ABA, I think if you do breach, the ABA is a bit of a cop-out. I mean, if you compare it to athletics or another sport, if you're taking PEDs, if you're doing nandrolone or human growth hormone, then a picogram is a picogram. For those of you guys that watch UFC, John Jones got caught with a picogram of a banned substance in his stream, and ultimately, you know what I mean? Like, it's an infringement. So I don't know. There's two ways that you can take that, Will.i.am, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to be so definitive in saying that Red Bull, they cheated. Maybe they did cheat. Maybe cheating is the right, I don't know. And that they gained an advantage. Well, how do we know? Maybe they did. Maybe they, I don't know. It's hard. Very hard. And then to the penalty, and again, I've been reading this book called The Death of Expertise, and I don't want to come on here ever and say, and pretend as if I'm like the oracle of all things F1. There are people out there in the YouTube space who are infinitely better with it. You see it every week here on the Shakedown. You'll see it tomorrow morning when Shez and Baxty will be schooling me and pulling out, I don't know, like back in 2008 when Sebastian Vettel, like I can't remember this. So I always say as the disclaimer here, or caveat to the hilt, there are people out there who are closer to this. Peter Windsor, I can't do that. I don't know enough. Blake, absolute legend in the game. And Blake, again, former Red Bull employee, so maybe there is a tint of bias there. But, you know, you guys have seen Blake on the channel before. I don't think he will criticise Red Bull. I just watched one of his videos where he's saying Max Verstappen needs to listen more. I was like, needs to listen to GP a bit more. So I think Blake is the gold standard on this stuff. And he said, Blake's words, that ATR, that's like 7 percentage points, right? 10% worth of wind tunnel timing punishment. Blake's view was that will hurt them. Now, whether you see, don't look at the dominance and say, well, they're so dominant, it hasn't hurt them. I don't think that's the measure of this. You can't KPI it like that. Blake, as an expert in the spaces, that 10% would hurt. Especially if it's like 10% of 100%, then cool. But it's not 10%. It's like 7 percentage points. So it's reduced from 70 down to 63% of the 100% that the back markers would get. So it's because it's a bigger percentage of a smaller total. I think it will hurt them. I think it will hurt. Now, whether we'll see that peg them back is a different thing, but I think it will have an impact. Just that you won't see it. But then you say, if it has an impact, then why do it? I don't know. Chicken and the egg. I hope that answers your question. Well, wish I was on the other channel. Mary, oh my God, wish this was on the other channel. I'm not, Mary, I've sorted you out now. I know I'm going back. I just want to get through your comments, but I am after the fact, Hanny. Not cast cut, but illegal motors or illegal training to come. Oh, skill, yo, Cam, stupidness, Lewis winning this race. Skrill, I hope. So, listen, it'd be incredible. As far as his chances, I mean, I always defer to the bookmakers again, experts. And Lewis, I want to say, is like third or fourth favourite from memory, 14-1, which works out, I want to say, about a 7% chance, I think. Not great. We need favours, Skrill. We need favours. Cam Needham I think I've done it, Mary. But Will.i.am solution, get rid of the cost cap and let it. Oh, Will.i.am, you're gonna. Will.i.am, you said that as a true Mercedes fan. I can hear it, like it comes through in your verbiage. Because sadly, F1 needs both, right? It's a hard. I don't know what the solve is, Will. I'll be honest, and I think we might be chopping it up with Shez and Baxty about this later on. But if you open up the cost cap and just allow Mercedes to absolutely, maybe a temporary opening of the cost cap. I don't know. I don't know what the solve is. But if you sack off the cost cap permanently, all that you're doing now, all that you're going to see is a lot of teams like the likes of Williams and McLaren, like they're going to struggle, right? Because they can't even, McLaren probably not, but Williams, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, you're going to see them struggle because they just don't have the funds or title sponsors. A lot of them, Williams can't even meet the cost cap as it is because they just don't have it. So I don't want to I don't want it to just become Wall Street again. I don't want to I don't want to advocate for Mercedes or any other team being able to just throw $1 billion at the problem. Because that's not, I don't know. It is an interesting one, Mandler, 100%. Well, right, let me get through the rest of these comments and we can go and watch some F1. I feel like we've already missed it, 7 minutes. No, another half an hour left, but this is only FP1. And we haven't talked in ages, so I'm going to do my best to get through your comments in the next 7 minutes or less. Salam, what's going on? I hope you're good. I hope you're still here. I'm longing getting around to all the comments, but I'm out of practice on all this live chat stuff. I'm going to start trying to do them more regularly, man, once a week at least, but it's bloody hard. And I mean, nobody wants to get divorced, right? Oh, I say that jokingly, but yeah, you might not know. Lolly, the other teams made headlines asking for Mercedes to be cut that too. Everyone in the sport are hypocrites, Lewis and Max included. It's all part of the F1 game. Lolly, I feel like I've already covered that, Lolly, but there's something that I'll take exception to there. I wouldn't call Lewis a hypocrite. And I'm not even sure I'd call Max a hypocrite. Because I can't remember the instance where Max was probably was, to be fair. It's not, I wouldn't put it past Max to be campaigning for Mercedes to get pegged back. But Lewis, I don't think Lewis is the type to... Lewis is too meek and mild almost. You could almost sit, if you've got Sky Sports F1 or you can go onto the Sky Sports F1 YouTube channel, I would advise you to watch back that clip. He's almost apologetically pointing the finger at Red Bull and the FIA. He's laughing. Christian Horner's not doing that, Lolly. Christian Horner's going to come out and he's like, fix your rules. It's not good enough. Everybody's not watching. I feel like Lewis is almost too nice. I don't know. Hypocrite isn't a word that I'd level necessarily at Lewis. I'd almost like to say, as a Lewis fan, I'd almost like to see him be more of, well, not a hypocrite, but get his elbow, speak more on it. Like, what are we doing? We're losing fans by the second, FIA. Like, are you going to, what are you going to do about it? Liberty Media, how's that profit line looking? Good last year and the year before, right? On the back of COVID and Drive to Survive and a fantastic 2021 season. Well, let's see what the P&L looks like at the end of this year. Imagine if you said something like that. Whoa. Yeah, Greg Maffei and Liberty Media would act fast then. Have a word with Mohammed Ben Sulayem and get it sorted, I'm telling you. But they will do so. It's coming. Like, cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. Dollar bills. Ultimately, that's the only colour that Greg Maffei will see, right? Really smart thing Red Bull did was getting the budget cap and the engine for it. They're not daft, are they? They campaigned hard. Christopher, Lowell, round the scenario top shot. Chris, I'm just saying. I think the most of us, and the joke is the only reason this is applicable to the space and Twitter. This is that where I'm pointing my my sniper scopes at. Twitter, he or she without sin should cast the first stone. And if you were to read Twitter without context, out of context, you would assume that these guys would never push a boundary or have never sinned, for the vitriol that they espouse and the way that the meaningless it's just words on Twitter, right? But everybody's virtue seeking. Just get someone else if you can't tell already. But that's why I give you that analogy, Christopher, because I'm not gonna condemn Lewis Hamilton for getting his elbows out and trying to affect change. Because that's what I would. I think that's what we'd all do. What if millions are on the left? Come on, what are we doing here? Mandler, how many times did Red Bull threaten to leave? Yes, that's a very good shout. Mandler, there is a very good document, a very good article on, I want to say it's over racingfans.net or racing365. Type it in on Google. Where they threatened to leave. I mean, that's the biggest threat, right? And you got to listen to that if you're the FIA and the FOM. What, Dietrich Mateschitz, RIP, but take all his money out of Red Bull. And plus, let me say this, I think that threat carries almost more weight than if Mercedes were to do it, yeah. Not that Mercedes shouldn't be saying similar things. But when Red Bull say all the work they do with like taking their F1 cars, their older F1 cars around the world for show runs and running them through Trafalgar Square, all this stuff that Red Bull does, you could argue that Red Bull are like as far as free marketing, no one kind of does more of it, and it's better than Red Bull. So when Dietrich Mateschitz said, you know what, if you don't fix these rules and engine freeze and ban party mode, but then my money's going to go to a separate formula, I'll just keep doing other extreme sports not named F1, then you got to listen, man. I wouldn't mind seeing Toto say, I think, why isn't Toto saying that? Why hasn't he said it already? This is F1, man. I don't want to start riffing on Toto, but I could. Toto's very nice, isn't he? Plays by the rules. Stopwatch never lies. Toto. Whereas that guy, okay, so put some respect on Toto's name. It has absolutely got us 8 Constructors' Championships. But of late, sometimes you've got to evolve, man, change with the game. I'm not sure Toto has been doing that. Well, also, but they knew they would break the exact. So, well, to the Red Bull's cost cap infringement, I'm not sure that they did that on purpose, if I'm honest. If you're going to do it on purpose, you would. All right, let's put ourselves in that position. As you round third base and I get to the end of your comments, if you were gonna, okay, look, a minor breach, it was like 10%, wasn't it? So like say, I think I worked out at the time, it's like 5 million. So say if a minor breach constituted 5 million, let's hypothesize for a second. If you were going to breach deliberately, then you breach 4.9 million, right? $499,999 or pounds is how much it is, but that they breached by 400k. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's so material. I think you can argue that it wasn't deliberate. Plus, there was a tax rebate that they thought they were going to get. They'd been advised by a very reputable professional services firm that they were going to get the tax rebate. Didn't come through. I don't know. Well, I think you do Red Bull a disservice to say that they did it deliberately. If they did it deliberately, they would have spent a lot more, I think. It's going to make things very difficult for the 2026. Right. Drivers grass on each other, says Lolly. Absolutely true. Well, what do you... right, let me read out the last few. Daniel, what's going on? But what's going on? Mandler and Mary Binney back in the moderator extraordinaire seats after much ado. Will says, Cameron, what do you think of Joseph Vincent's sports documentaries on YouTube? He just made good Crawford Spence. Mate, I've never heard of him, Will. But so, mate, I love a sports documentary, so I will check him out. The best ones that I've ever seen, I think OJ Made in America, I said it already, I think that's the best one that I've ever seen in life. Incredible. And I forget the name of the dude that put that together, but he's a genius. Legendary Nights is incredible. There's a chat, if you're talking F1 sports documentaries, F1 Sports, F1 documentaries. There is a chap called F. Loz, I think. His attention to detail is incredible. Incredible. Will I am shout me, mate, if you want a mod gig, I'll happily put you on there as well. Lolly, CYM, Sylvia, what's going on? I'm rabbiting on here, guys and girls. Rabico, Lewis has already been beaten by Lewis on in equal machinery. I don't know what you mean, Rabico. There's a rookie. Oh, there were so many comments. Clearly, yeah, F. Lozzy's sick, isn't he? Will I am. He's very sick. Retail therapy, much love, very respect to the cam. Rabico, yeah, rumours a couple of teams broke it. Maybe they did, I don't know. Sick and tired of all this cost cap talk, peddlers. I'll be honest with you, man. I just want to watch some racing. Yeah, enjoy your shopping, Mary. Sir Lewis is a real gem for the sport. He has real love and understanding for both white and black people because they are his family. I wish Sir Lewis to get the 8th. Here's hoping, mate, as a Sir Lewis Hamilton fan. Here is hoping. Right, peddlers, I'm going to wrap it there because I've gone on too long. There's some interesting bits, though, I'll be honest with you. There's a piece there when I'm talking about Lewis. I've never quite thought of that. This is why we need to do these chats more often because you guys in your questions kind of provoke me to think deeper about these things. There's a piece there in there, pat myself on the back, that needs clipping up. That thing that, why Lewis is so tentative. Very interesting. Well, I hope you've all enjoyed that, man. I'm sorry to the questions and comments that I didn't get around to, but I am on a long thing. I need to go and upload something. 400k repair money for Bottas crashed. Yeah, fair. But you don't know, do you, Bert? This is the problem. Like, how... What do you attribute the 400k towards? Now, Red Bull's official line was the 400k was the tax rebate that they didn't get, but was it? Like, could have been anything. And do you do it based on time spent? Like, do you do it based on when they spent 145? Anything? It's just too hard. But I'm telling you, as an accountant, you can't. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. Right, peddlers, I'm going to go and watch some. I meant Alonso has already been beaten by Lewis in equal machinery when it was Lewis, absolutely. Which is a marquee season. I don't think Lewis gets enough credit for doing that. Because Alonso is a god-tier driver, god-tier CPU, god-tier racing IQ, god-tier racing awareness. And he's jumped into the same machinery first year of F1 rookie season and beat him by on countback, wasn't it? It was on either 1 point or on countback. You guys are legends. I'm going to go and do some work-ish or something. Upload a video. Go and watch some F1. Have a fantastic rest of the Friday. I hope you guys enjoy the race weekend. New video dropping on the Mothership channel at some point later on. I might try and drop it at 2 o'clock after this session. It's a good video. I apologise in advance for the audio. You guys are legends. Between now and next time, do me a favour. Hug somebody that you love. Look but never stare. Shake down first thing tomorrow morning. Peace.